My wife doesn't want you at our wedding. You're pitiful, my brother said. So that afternoon I canceled their honeymoon, terminated his lease, and walked away from that entire family for good. You're pitiful, Tracy. That's the last thing my brother said to me before I walked away from him, his wife, and our entire family. Not thanks. Not sorry. Not even a normal explanation. Just those 3 words, like I was beneath him, like I hadn't been the one holding up his entire life with both hands for the past 2 years. Like I hadn't been the one paying his bills while he ran around pretending he had it all together. I found out about the wedding through a friend. Not a save the date. Not a phone call. Just a random message from someone I hadn't seen since college. Congrats on your brother's wedding this weekend. So exciting. I stared at the screen for a long time. I thought maybe they were confused. Maybe it was someone else's wedding. But no, I checked and there it was. His wedding. This Saturday. In town. 2 days away. No invitation. No heads up. Nothing. The last time I saw him we were eating tacos on my couch. He was talking about how expensive flowers were, how Lauren was stressed about table linens. I offered to help with the florist. Told him I could cover it if it meant less stress. He smiled, nodded, and let me do it. That was 3 weeks ago. Now I was finding out through a third party that not only had the wedding been quietly planned without me, I wasn't even invited. I didn't confront him right away. I gave it a night. Thought maybe there was some reason. Some mix-up. The next morning he called me. Didn't waste time. No small talk. Just said, "Look, Lauren doesn't want you at the wedding. We talked about it a lot. She thinks it's better if you don't come." I didn't say anything. I waited. He kept going. "It's not personal. We just don't want drama. You always act like you're better than everyone. You make people uncomfortable. It's not a good look, especially on our day." I still didn't speak. Then he said it. "You're pitiful, Tracy. You think being successful makes you important. It doesn't." And that was it. The call ended. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes before I opened my laptop. The honeymoon they were going on. Napa, 5 nights, boutique hotel, wine tour included. Paid with my travel points. I canceled it within 10 minutes. Reservation gone. Their apartment lease? My name on the documents. They couldn't qualify without me. Rent was getting pulled from my account monthly. I contacted the property manager and terminated it. Effective end of the month. I told them to deal with the tenants however they needed to. The car they were leasing? I couldn't touch that one yet, but the insurance policy they were both under? I removed them that same afternoon. Streaming services. Cell phone add-ons. Grocery subscriptions. Cut off. Cut off. Cut off. Everything they'd been leaning on me for, gone. And it wasn't out of spite. It was clarity. This was never about me being pitiful. It was about me being useful. And now that I wasn't useful in the way they wanted, quiet, obedient, generous, without expectation, I wasn't welcome. But the worst part wasn't even the wedding. It was what happened when my mom found out. She called me the next day, said she heard what happened. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd take my side. Nope. It's their wedding, Tracy. Let them have it the way they want. You shouldn't make such a big deal. I almost laughed. But I didn't. I just told her she wouldn't be hearing from me again. Not soon. Maybe not ever. She didn't argue. And that was the moment I realized I wasn't just stepping away from my brother. I was walking away from the entire family. And I didn't look back. After I pulled the plug, I expected them to come running. Maybe not to apologize, but at least to ask what happened. But nothing. Not a word from my brother. Not even a text from Lauren, who usually had no problem sending passive-aggressive messages when she wanted something. It was almost like they didn't notice. Until 3 days later, the day after the wedding, when I got a string of missed calls from an unknown number. Then a voicemail from the property manager. Apparently, someone in the apartment had cursed him out when he delivered the lease termination notice. They had 30 days to vacate, and they were acting like it was some cruel trick I had pulled just for fun. But this wasn't a trick. It was math. You don't pay for what you can't afford. You don't insult the person paying for the roof over your head. You don't call her pitiful and expect the checks to keep coming. That Monday, I got a call from my accountant. He asked if I was sure I wanted to stop the rent payments. I said I wasn't just sure. I wanted a full list of everything I'd ever covered for my brother and Lauren. Every receipt. Every transaction. I wanted to see it all in front of me. He sent it over in a PDF later that afternoon. The grand total? $83,291.14. $83,000. That's how much I'd given them in 2 years. Not loans, gifts. Or at least that's what I told myself at the time. Birthday presents, housewarming gifts, emergency vet bills for a dog Lauren just had to rescue and then ignored. Payments for her business coaching courses she never finished. Money for spa weekends she said would relieve her anxiety, so she could work harder on her brand. And all of it wrapped in a smile, a thank you, and then forgotten like it was owed to them. I think the moment it hit me hardest was when I looked at one transfer labeled, studio equipment. $2,000. She was going to be a podcaster then. That phase lasted a month. I was done being their safety net. And if that made me the villain in their story, so be it. A week passed, then two. I started to breathe again. Work got busier. I started sleeping better. I went to dinner with a friend and didn't have to worry about getting a text from my brother asking if I could Venmo him just $150 until payday. Then my mom showed up at my store. She hadn't been in since last Christmas. Walked in like nothing had happened. Looked around and said the same thing she always did. You're doing well for yourself. Which always sounded more like an accusation than a compliment. She asked if I was still mad. I said I wasn't mad. I was just done. Big difference. She asked how I could turn my back on family like this. I reminded her that family turned their backs on me first. She said I was making too big a deal over a wedding. That it wasn't about me. I told her she was right. It wasn't about me. That's exactly why I was walking away. That night, I went home and changed the emergency contacts on all my business accounts. My brother was listed on 2 of them. Just in case. Not anymore. Let them figure things out without me. I had been their backup plan for too long. It didn't take long for things to fall apart. 2.5 weeks after their wedding, my brother showed up outside my store. Not inside, outside. Just stood across the street, pacing, looking at his phone like he was waiting for someone to come out and beg him to explain himself. I didn't. I watched him through the tinted glass from my office upstairs. He didn't come in. I guess pride still mattered even when you're living off someone else's generosity. I knew why he was there. The same reason he always came around when things got bad. Their lease was ending in a week. The honeymoon was canceled. The car insurance was up. And according to a friend of mine who worked in finance and happened to follow Lauren on Instagram, she'd quietly deactivated all her influencer accounts. No more makeup tips. No more emotional quotes in front of soft lighting. Just gone. Apparently, she'd posted a story a few days earlier. Just a black screen with some long caption about betrayal and jealous women. I didn't see it myself, but the description was enough to confirm it. She still thought this was a competition. Like I canceled their honeymoon to steal her spotlight. I ignored my brother that day. And the next. He stood out there twice more before giving up. Never called. Never texted. Instead, my mother started again. This time more aggressive. She left a voicemail saying I was being cruel. That I had humiliated them and ruined what should have been the happiest time of their lives. That family doesn't treat each other like this. I played the message twice just to make sure I heard her right. Then I blocked her number. I wasn't going to be guilt-tripped for drawing boundaries. Not after the years I spent bending backwards to make sure everyone else was okay while no one checked if I was. I stopped checking their socials. I told my assistant to delete any calls from their names. I even had the security team keep a log of who came into the building just in case. I had washed my hands of them. And then 5 weeks later Lauren came in. No warning. No appointment. No makeup. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Not just tired, hollow. She walked past customers like she didn't see them and came straight up to the front desk. My assistant called me, said, "You're not going to believe who just walked in." I said, "Let her wait." I made her sit out there for 20 minutes before I walked down. She didn't greet me. Didn't apologize. He just launched right in. She said they were staying with my parents now. That they had no money. That my brother was trying to get a job but wasn't built for retail. That the car was impounded. That she had credit card debt I never knew about. And that everything was harder than she thought it would be. Then she said she needed help. That she was hoping I could just help them get through the winter. She said it like it was a casual favor. Like we were close. Like I was just being stubborn and needed to snap out of it. I waited until she was done. Then I said, "That's not my problem anymore. Get out." She stood there for a second like she didn't understand the words. I repeated it. Come, there, get out. And she did. I didn't feel good after I told her to get out. Not angry. Not smug. Just finished. She stood there a second too long, like she thought I was bluffing, like she was waiting for me to soften. I didn't. When she finally turned and left, she didn't even look around the store. Head down. Quiet. She walked right out into the parking lot and disappeared. I went back upstairs and closed my door. What hit me hardest wasn't that she'd come crawling back. It was that she still didn't think she'd done anything wrong. That after everything she and my brother had said and done, they thought they could come back and lean on me like none of it mattered. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach turn. They never thought I'd walk away. They thought they had me locked in. That I'd keep paying, keep helping, keep smiling through their passive digs and their disappearing acts. Because I was the strong one. The successful one. The one who had more and therefore owed them something. But here's the thing no one ever talks about. When you're the one holding the rope and the people on the other end just keep dangling there. Never climbing, never pulling themselves up. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is let go. The backlash came fast. A cousin texted me a Bible quote about forgiveness. I blocked her. An aunt messaged me on Facebook saying she didn't want to take sides, but it was sad how divided our family had become. I replied, there's no sides. Just people who pay their own bills and people who don't. Blocked her too. But it wasn't all bad. A week later I got a handwritten letter from my dad. We're not close, never really have been, but the letter was short and honest. He said he'd watched from the sidelines too long. That he should have stepped in sooner. That I didn't owe anyone an apology for finally putting myself first. It was the first time anyone in the family had said that. I kept the letter. By then I'd heard through a former mutual friend that my brother was working part-time at a gas station. Lauren was trying to get hired at a yoga studio she used to post about constantly, the one she once said she'd never work at because they underpaid instructors. Turns out she didn't even get an interview. They were still living with my parents, still blaming me, still confused about why everything felt so hard. But I wasn't confused at all. They'd built their lives on a foundation they didn't lay. And the second I stopped pouring concrete under their feet, the whole thing crumbled. Let it. I don't think it really sank in for them until the car got towed. It was one of those cars that looked more expensive than it was. The kind with just enough chrome to make a statement. They loved that thing. My brother used to say it made him look like a man with a plan, even though I was the one making the monthly payments on it. He must have forgotten whose name was on the insurance policy. When I dropped it, the missed payments piled up fast. They couldn't afford the premiums, and eventually the financing company pulled the plug. Took it right out of my parents' driveway while Lauren filmed a story about gratitude and patience. The irony was unreal. A friend of mine, someone I hadn't talked to in a while, sent me a screenshot a few days later. Lauren had posted a blurry photo of an old journal with a long caption about toxic family members and how people who pretend to be kind are actually the most manipulative. It was obvious who she meant. My name wasn't there, but it didn't have to be. She called me manipulative after everything I had given them. After the holidays I spent stressing over what they needed. After the time I pulled money from my savings to cover their medical bill because they forgot to enroll in their work insurance. And yet somehow I was the problem. My brother didn't say a word through any of it. Not a call, not an email. He just sank into silence and let her run her mouth publicly while pretending like none of this was happening. They made it sound like I'd abandoned them in the middle of a storm. But the truth was they never built their own shelter, they just kept moving into mine. And now it was raining. I heard they applied for assistance, food stamps, housing support, the whole thing. That Lauren was telling people they were just figuring things out, while she picked up shifts at a smoothie shop near the freeway. She didn't post about that part. Meanwhile, my business hit a growth streak. We launched a new product line, started getting offers from national stockists, and our holiday numbers were the highest we'd ever seen. For the first time in years, I could breathe without checking my phone every hour to see if someone in my family needed saving. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was free. And people started noticing. One night, I went to dinner with some former clients turned friends. We got to talking about burnout, about boundaries, and I told them everything. Not to vent, just to tell the truth. One of them, a woman who runs a successful consulting firm, said something that stuck with me. She said, "People like that don't want help. They want control. And when they lose it, they make you the villain for stepping away." That was it. That was the whole thing. Lauren never wanted a sister-in-law. She wanted a comparison she could use to justify her own failures. My brother didn't want support, he wanted cover. He wanted to keep pretending he was standing on his own 2 feet while I held him up behind the curtain. Well, curtains down. Let them stand now or fall. Not my problem either way. But the final chapter hadn't happened yet. Not until she came back. She came back exactly 3 months after the wedding. It was late afternoon, quiet in the store. My team had just wrapped a strategy meeting and most of them had gone home. I was still there, finalizing inventory numbers when my assistant buzzed me. She's here again. I didn't have to ask who. Lauren. I told her to send her up. This time I wanted to see her face. She walked into my office looking even more worn out than before. Not in a dramatic way, not like someone who'd been crying or falling apart, just flat, dull. Like life had been draining her one little inconvenience at a time. She didn't sit. She just stood there and said, "We can't keep living with your parents. He's not working. He won't even look for jobs anymore. He stays in the basement all day. I've done everything I can, and I can't do this anymore." I let her talk. I'm working 2 jobs. I've sold everything I can. I'm behind on my credit cards. I owe everyone. And he just blames you for all of it. I raised an eyebrow. He says if you hadn't pulled everything we'd still be fine. He says you ruined us. I leaned back and said nothing. Just watched her. Then came the part one knew was coming. I need help. Just a little. A few thousand. Something to hold me over until tax season. I swear I'll pay it back. She didn't offer a single apology. Not for the wedding. Not for the words. Not for the years of quiet disrespect. Not for using me and calling me pitiful behind my back. She didn't take responsibility. She just stood there hoping the past would get wiped clean because now she was the one drowning. I asked her one question. What happens when you run out again? She stared at me. Didn't answer. I nodded. Exactly. Then I stood up, walked over to the door, opened it and said what I should have said a long time ago. No one's coming to save you, Lauren. Not anymore. Get out. She left. Quiet this time. No show. No performance. Just out. And that was it. That was the end. No big blowout. No screaming. Just the truth, finally spoken without guilt, without fear. I wasn't their enemy. I was their supply. And when the supply dried up, so did their loyalty. I locked the door behind her and went back to work. I had payroll to approve. A shipment to schedule. A company to run. A life to live. One I built myself. One I no longer had to share with people who only saw me as a wallet with a pulse. It took me years to realize it, but I wasn't pitiful. They were. And I don't answer blocked numbers anymore.